Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Zoomer Economics, where today we're going to be talking about our budget tracking sheet. This is a free Google Sheets that I designed myself. You can plug in your data, find out based on your income and your expenses how much money you should be having left over. Once you have that information, once you have that knowledge, you can start picking out the things that you shouldn't be doing. So, for instance, let's take a look at the actual document. So, as you can see, we have the link under every single one of our videos here on Zoomer Economics. And I'm just going to click on the link. I'm going to be using an account that has never opened the link before. So, this is exactly what you're going to see when you click on it. Once you get to this, you're going to have to make a copy of it for yourself. So you're going to click on File, and then after you go to File, you're going to click on Make Copy. And then you're going to give it a title, whatever you want. I'm going to call this one Test. And then you're going to see that it'll make a copy that you can now edit. So, as you can see, we have it with the title Budget and Savings Made Easy. And that's exactly what it's for. Budgeting and saving. And, it might sound simple, and people swear that they're doing it, and they swear that they're budgeting, and they know exactly where their money is going. But prove it. Prove it to yourself. Put it all in here, and you're going to have to scour through all of your cards. If you're somebody who has multiple credit cards with multiple bills that you can't keep track of, then yeah, that's a problem. That's something that you need to address. And that's a problem that you have to address before you can go to something even as simple as this. If you have 5 credit cards, find out what recurring payments happen on those cards. For example, Hulu, Netflix, Apple Music, all of those different things that happen monthly. Find out which cards have any of those, and they could also be just minimum payments. So if you're running up a charge on these credit cards, let's say for instance you have a Best Buy store card and you're just running up a balance and you're just paying off the minimum, which would be $35 maybe, and you have a $2,000 balance, that's going to take a long time. With this, you can find out how much interest, or it'll bring you closer to how much interest you'll be paying, which is extra money on top of what you bought for nothing just because you borrowed cash. Deal with that first. Make sure that you have a more centralized, it doesn't have to be one single account. That's totally fine if you have multiple accounts, but start making sense of where the things are going. If you have 5 different music subscriptions for some reason, you can cut some of those out. You really should. You don't need that many. If you have every single streaming service, Disney, Hulu, Netflix, all of them, every single one that you can think of, ESPN, do you really need all of those things? How many times a week do you actually use them? So those are questions that you're going to have to answer yourself. Eventually, you'll find out how many of those you have. You'll find out what cards they're on, and you'll see if you can move them to a different card. Let's say you have one on each card. Can you move all of them to one card? That would be ideal. It'd be much easier to keep track of, at least. But you got to address the small things that you're putting your money into monthly. Not the $5 lattes that you're getting. That's something that you're going to really have to do some soul searching on. If you are anything like how I was last year, yeah, it's going to be really hard to give up those lattes. But the more you try, the more likely that it'll happen. And the less money that you're going to be shelling out to Starbucks. This portion right here is the most important part when we first start. So what you're going to be doing here is you're going to be putting in all of the expenses and all of your income. For instance, what it comes with here is a list of things that you will probably have as charges: cell phone bill, electricity, cable, train fare, video games is something that I put there because that's something that applies to me. Credit card. Credit card payment, you can fill up this entire category with whatever credit card payments you have. Uh, this, for example, is if right now you were making a minimum payment of $35 a month, you would put credit card here and 30 minus $35. So for example, if I wanted my music streaming service, if I had, let's say, 10 different things, uh, that could really come out to a lot of money. So that could come out to $90. That would be tragic if you were spending $90 a month on just music. Let's say that you're going down and you're buying the latest jazz album at the record store, and you're spending a couple of bucks on that a month consistently. We can say that you're going down to the record store and you're spending consistently per month $100. That's not that unrealistic. And then let's say that you are going to the ice cream store every single day after work. You need to cool off with the summer's treat for $750. No, that's not realistic. Let's say $30 a month. All right? So, you've put in all your expenses here. And then at the top, you're going to put in how much money you make from your main job, right here, and how much money you make from your side job. Sorry, I shouldn't be doing these videos at 1 a.m. You can also put a third side job if you have one. We can call this one lawn mowing. Whatever, just put lawn. And let's say that I'm making $100 a month, or excuse me, this is a week. Okay, up here it's a week. If you really need to find out how much you're making a week, take how much you're making a month and divide it by 4. That's something that you should know already, but it's alright if you don't know this stuff. This is totally fine. This is stuff that you might not have ever looked at before. Over here, on the right, these are the stats that are automatically generated from what we put in here. This is my total monthly income. So this times 4 is my monthly income, which is, in this situation, this hypothetical situation, is $2,800, and this would be my yearly income. All right? Let's say, for example, my main job, I got a awesome raise. I'm getting $700. Hooray! You'll see that all of that will change accordingly. Oh no, hard times have hit the company. 550. All right, so you see it all automatically updates. This is your total expenses. So how many expenses you put here will make this number go up, obviously. This is how much money you're going to be spending a year on just your necessities. This will blow your mind sometimes. A lot of people don't expect this, and most people will not put every single thing that they're spending in this portion. Don't worry, we've taken that into account as well. Let's say that these are all of your consistent bills. This is everything that you know is going to be coming in for the foreseeable future. Let's say that your life stays exactly the same for the next 10 years. These are going to be the things that you need to keep your life staying exactly the same and not moving down. These are the costs of doing that. $2,500 a month in this hypothetical situation. And that's $30,000 that you are guaranteed to have to spend. So you're going to need to obviously make more than this number. This number has to be higher than this number. If that's not the case, then there's a problem there. That means that you are in debt. When you have debt, you can't build any kind of wealth. You can't start thinking about making money when you owe your money to somebody. That brings us down to this section down here, the debt calculator. This is a super simple, very simple piece of technology here. Let's say that I purchased something that was $7,548, right? If I paid the minimum payment, which was $35, it's going to take me 216 months to pay off that debt. That's ridiculous. Because if you know anything about interest, that means that each month that you don't pay off that balance, each time that that balance sits there onto the next bill, it gets a little bit bigger. Sometimes a lot bigger. And in some cases, that 216 months can easily turn to 500 if you're careless. But let's say that I'm good about it and I make $350 payments. 22 months. That payment's gone. That's great. Does that mean that it was a great use of my money? Not really. You shouldn't be borrowing money. There's enough debt calculators here for you to keep track of your sins. But then we get to the orange section, the difference. This is the money that we're working with after all of our expenses. This number is usually, unfortunately, small. Most people, including myself, I'm not going to lie, when I do my personal numbers, that number is smaller than I would want it to be. But of course, in this example that we have right now with these current numbers, the difference would be $15,000. That is 66% of this person's yearly income is completely gone. But that leaves them with a good chunk of money to spend. But realistically, that money goes to Ubers, that money goes to clothing, that money goes to food that we don't take into account: restaurants, parties, beer, drinks out on the town, all of that stuff. That's where this money starts going. And that's where we get to the after expenses and the left side, the buffer. Okay? The buffer is something that I had to program into here to keep this thing much more realistic. Okay? And it's red, you notice, because this is the part that you're supposed to take charge of. This is the part for you to be looking at and saying, gee, I need to get my act together. Because once you put in the reality, that's going to hurt. You're going to see all this stuff here, and you're going to be sad, and you're going to realize that this is not fun anymore. But you're going to see this number after expenses. In this case, it's $1,270. Okay? That $1,270 is something that we should ideally be saving. Okay? And if we were to stash that money away with a 0% buffer, I'm going to put that on 0, and you'll see why. You see over here that $1,270 gets put right into here, savings per month. That means that $15,000, this number exactly the same, this is how much money I'm going to be saving a year. If I were to invest that money, 100% of it, with a 0% buffer, that's what that means. 100% of my money is going to be getting invested per month for 10 years. I'll have $169,000 after 10 years if I just get 4% interest. The 4% growth. 4% growth in the stock market when you put into ETFs. We'll talk about what an ETF is. But that's not a that's not a wild number, 4%. You can get something for 4%. Now we have to get to the sad truth about the buffer. The buffer is the percentage of after expense money that we spend. Realistically, that is about 0.7 is a good number. 70% of the money that you save or that you have left over, 70% of that money is getting spent. That's pretty realistic. That's fairly realistic. But that leaves me with $381 a month. That's about $400. It's $100 a week that I'd be saving in this situation. If I'm saving $100 a week, that gets me to this number yearly. In my first year, if I start with that, after 1 year of time, it'll go up 4%. That's what I'll end with. If I saved that entire amount, the same exact amount, the next year, and added that with my end of year balance, I'll have this number. Until all of a sudden, I have $50,000 saved up. That's $50,000 in 10 years that I can be using to put towards the down payment on a home or my next business, something like that, right? But the goal is to get this number higher, saving more money per year. So we have to get our buffer lower. If I brought my buffer down to 50%, now all of a sudden you see everything starts changing. I'm starting to save more money. By the end of it, I end up with even more money after 10 years. If I didn't change anything about my expenses and my money continues to stay exactly the same, but I start cutting down on the frivolous things, like going out to the restaurant and going out to the bar, all of that stuff. If you start cutting down on it and you stop buying Supreme and Yeezys and you stop, buying takeout food 4 times a week, stop spending $20 on lunch during work, bring your buffer down. Lower your buffer all the way to 0.2. Boom. If you're saving all of this money, $1,000 a month, that sounds ridiculous. But what if it wasn't? What if you actually cut down your expenses? Can you cut down your expenses like that? You might find out that you're in a situation where you actually have to spend $2,800 and you only have $200 of money after. Then what? Well, you're going to have to start looking through here, see what you can cut down on. You shouldn't have video streaming, music streaming, going to the record store, getting ice cream. All of those things you have to cut down on. Your cell phone bill, you can deal with the basic text package for a while. But what about during this quarantine and things like that? The quarantine has been an amazing thing for me personally because it's gotten me to get my expenses down drastically. I didn't have to pay for my train fare. I didn't have to pay for as much food outside. My rent still stays the same, obviously, and I still have my one music streaming service. And yeah, my cell phone is probably the highest thing that I have right now that I want to cut down on. But in the end, you get down your expenses, you can at least start thinking about where you can start making more money. That's not as easy. I can respect that, obviously. But there's some things that you can do. There's always something that you can do, and it's on you to try to find that. Get this number up, get that number up, get this number up. And that's the idea for the entire spreadsheet. I hope that it works for you, and I will see you in the next video.